All right, welcome to Pod Damn America, everyone. I'm seriously starting over. That was waffly, and we're gonna lose that killer POD bit, but who gives a shit? Hi,
We can splice it.
I'm Jake Flores. As always, I'm pointing to the phone that Carlos Delgado is on. I don't know why I thought he would pick up
Carlos,
that cue.
get your
I'm
cue.
Carlos Delgado.
Carlos coming in from Los Angeles, and we have a very special guest, Mike Gamms, with us today. Mike, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I just wanted to say it's an honor to be in the room with Carlos Delgado on the phone. I'll never forget when you talked about how dinosaurs aren't real because their bones are man-made. That's you, right? The same Carlos Delgado, or?
I don't believe that was me unless it was a drunk podcast.
No, are you a professional baseball player? Because
Yes.
that one sure said that.
Thank you so much. My knees gave out. I retired, and I became an amateur theologist.
Good.
That is me, Carlos Delgado, patron saint of the Mets.
Yeah.
Wow, they gave out hard.
Is it bad that that's the one thing I remember about Carlos Delgado is that he said that dinosaurs weren't real and that their bones were man-made?
I feel like that's gonna be my new hour. It's gonna be based around just that.
I'm sure you could find it on ESPN or something.
I can't wait to find it on ESPN 7.
Yeah.
Does he think that we made the bones and then put them in the dinosaurs?
I don't remember. I think that he thinks that the bones that we found were man-made. It was some sort of gross misinterpretation of Christianity sort of thing going on, for now. But I haven't followed up on Carlos Delgado really, other than the one on the phone.
Anyway, Gamms, welcome to the podcast,
Yes.
man. Glad to have you. This is kind of interesting. I don't think this is a thing that happens in our modern dumb 2017 social media culture. We don't really know each other.
No.
Just
I know
through
you.
comedy and the internet and stuff like that. And I think I get what you're all about. I think we're pals.
Yeah.
I think I'm down with what you're fucking doing and everything.
Same.
But
Same. I'm down with what I'm doing too. I mean,
I
down
should-
with what you're doing.
I
down
should
with
hope
what you're
that you are
doing.
down with what you're doing.
Yes, I am. I mean, most of the time.
The first step to being down with what other people are doing is being down with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be down with someone else if you're not down with yourself? That's
yeah.
like Mr. T quote.
And I'm a big fan of what you do. Except for when you ripped off that joke about the season finale of America.
Yeah, I know that
you
was
totally
uncalled
rip off.
for. Jimmy Carr just did it yesterday. It just
Yeah.
won't stop.
I see it all the time, and it's just I don't even know, you probably don't even know what to say anymore, so I'm I sure as shit don't know what to say to defend your honor there.
I don't.
Hey, I kind of know the guy from the internet that originally said that, so make sure if you're posting that, you credit Jake Flores.
Yeah, no.
But then I just
but
keep
actually,
trolling.
Yeah, I don't want the credit though. It's mostly hate at this point. But also, it's is that really mine? Such a hacky joke. Can you really own something? I don't know. I do know the Daily Show should give me $500. I'd be fine with that. Anyway, doesn't matter. But so you are currently in New York because
Yes.
you're tooling around the country in some sort of fear and loathing situation.
There's a lot of loathing
putting
and a lot
on-
of fear, yes.
Doing benefits and shit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I do a lot of weird shit. So I have this new event that you're doing here in New York called Stand Up Fight Back.
Yep. So this
Yep.
should be coming out the morning of this show. So if you hear this on November 7th in New York,
Tuesday, November 7th.
oh,
in New
Super
York.
Tuesday, Election Day. After you vote, come out to TBA in Williamsburg. We'll be
Yes.
doing this event called Stand Up Fight Back, which is a threefold sort of thing.
Yeah,
Right.
so basically, first the show starts where I moderate a panel of local activists. That's an hour-long panel. And then immediately after the panel, I host a comedy fashion show called Comedy Runway, where after each comedian performs, I have a panel of fashion judges that just critique their outfit and their outfit only.
Brilliant.
And then all of the proceeds go to the activists on the panel. So somehow it's this weird intersection of comedy, fashion, activism, and then I host them in like techno bars, so also techno.
Badass.
Yes.
So like techno, comedy, fashion, and activism.
Wow, the
Stand up,
5
fight back.
things that America loves.
Yeah. It's a super broad event. So yeah, no, but it's it kind of came about because like those are the things that I do the most.
Sure.
So I was like, I'm just gonna create an event that's catered to my my needs and wants.
Yeah, I feel
and
you.
Desires and the things that I think that I might be okay at.
That's why I have a drunk psychic tarot card reading show.
Right.
Yeah. / comedy. I just
Oh yes, also comedy.
if
I forget to
theory.
include that sometimes.
Yeah,
A lot of the
yeah.
things that I do.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's badass. Is that a thing you do regularly?
Yeah. So this one in New York will be the 3rd one. I did it in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and then previously or after that in Detroit. I'm doing it in Brooklyn on Tuesday, November 7th, and then I'm in DC this Thursday, November 9th, and then I'll be in Minneapolis later in the month, and then St. Louis, and then hopefully Atlanta. So doing the same event in all these different cities where it's like each city is different, where I have different activists, but they're all like local activists, local comics, local fashion people, local musicians, all like coming together to collaborate on this weird little concoction of fun-jucation.
Fun-jucation indeed. Cool. We'll get them plugs in there. That's very important. If you're in any of those cities, go out and see Gamms. I think this is going to be a cool event. This will be the first one we did in the flesh, but you hooked me up with I did a benefit in Houston, my hometown,
yes.
when I went back down there post Hurricane Harvey, and we raised $1,000 somehow in the back of a fucking barbecue restaurant. So I believe I'm a Gamm believer now.
Yeah. That was that event I actually wasn't able to be at, but I was in the Houston/Beaumont, Texas area for 2 weeks up until like the day before you guys did that, but I had to leave after that. But I was down there for a while doing like Harvey relief with a bunch of different groups, like doing different heavy shit. You know, it was,
yeah.
I mean, you know, you're from there and you've been there. Like it's not something that just like went away when the news went away. You know,
Right.
You know. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Yeah, it's like still happening. My dad's like still helping people gut their drywall out of their houses and shit down there. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I was there like a month after it hit, and there's still people that are living in houses completely covered with mold. Like, you know, elderly people just sitting on their couch that's covered in mold, and they're wearing a gas mask on their couch, just like watching TV, and they don't know what to do.
Oh, they're just in the locust. That's all that is.
Yeah, they're just like...
They're just laid for their I'm the 4th drummer in a Screamo band thing.
Yeah.
That's my grandpa. He's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's very cool. Yeah, I like that you're traveling around the country like a psychopath, doing something good in the world. Very awesome. Real quick, before I get into the main thing I wanted to ask you about, I just want to say real quick, if anyone's listening and you live in New York, this show tomorrow night, which will be tonight, as you're hearing it through these headphones, is on an election day. There's a bunch of city council seats and DA runs and shit like that going on. I want to endorse 2 people with my little rinky-dink fucking lefty comedy show.
All right, let's do it. Who are the this is the point where we cue in the theme music that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
This is the
That
Pod
John
America
Tesh fucking
official candidacy selection.
Local elections.
I had no idea you were an official lefty local lobbyist.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a greedy fat cat. I'm here to throw my money around, baby.
Taking all those handouts.
If you live in Brooklyn, there's a guy named Jabari Brisport who is running for city council on a Socialist Green Party ticket. He's endorsed by the DSA. He's great. He is like Fort Greene, fucking Crown Heights. There's like 3 fucking neighborhoods that are all clumped into there. I'm up in Bushwick, so he's not directly representing my neighborhood, but he's going to do a lot of good work. He's got a lot of great positions. Look into him. There are a lot of great local DSA like advocated issues going on in Brooklyn regarding like public housing, gentrification, things like that this is one of the only people that is actually on the side of the people that live here.
What was his name again?
Jabari Brisport.
Jabari Brisport.
Sorry, Jabari Brisport.
Jabari Brisport. And he is in Crown Heights, among other areas.
Yeah. Very cool. And there's this other guy, big fan of, named Mark Fleidner.
Mark Fleidner.
Fleidner or Fleidner? I'm gonna mess it up either way. Mark Fleidner is he was like a lawyer who worked on a couple of like police shooting cases and was running for DA, I believe, in Brooklyn, because he lives in Brooklyn, right? And he didn't win the primary in Brooklyn, so he decided, post not winning that primary, to take his time and run on like a write-in ticket against this guy named Cy Vance, who's the Manhattan DA. So he switched to Manhattan, and they allowed him to do it, right? So basically, Mark Fleidner is the first openly gay person to run for DA, like, anywhere ever. Very cool, right? He's also... he's on our side in terms of all this cop killer stuff. The reason he wants to at least make this symbolic run against Cy Vance is because Cy Vance, if you don't know, the Manhattan DA is like a piece of shit. He's like horrible. He's refused to prosecute the Trump kids over some bullshit real estate stuff they're doing. Refused to prosecute Harvey Weinstein. And he's just like let 1 million killer cops go, right? So at least in some way, we can show up tomorrow and give a big fuck you to Cy Vance. That's pretty cool. So Fleidner.
Yeah, let's let him have it.
Whatever the fuck you pronounce that. Pretty cool, right?
I don't know him, but you've made a convincing point.
Yeah. So now that we're past all the fun, nerdy local election stuff, tell me about this General Blood Agent.
Oh, so this is about Election Day last year, like that election.
Yeah. An election year passed.
Do you remember the election last year? Do you remember what that was about?
Brother, I don't remember the election yesterday, let me tell you.
Well, if you don't remember, last year, around this time, there was an election where a candidate by the name of Hillary Clinton was running against a guy named Donald Trump, I believe.
Dr. Trump.
Dr. Trump.
Dr. Trump!
That's what I call him.
So, at this point last year, I was in Atlanta, Georgia on Election Day. And I, at this point, but like the day of the election, I assumed that, like, there was no way Trump was going to win. Because, like, that's just the mindset that I was in. And so,
the gorilla mindset.
I thought it would be funny to, like, be around Trump voters in Georgia, that day. Because, like, I was like, there's no way that he's going to win. Like, I just thought it would be silly. But I heard about this thing called the 3% Security Task Force, which is like a growing militia movement in the United States, and it was started in like Butts County, Georgia, and Jackson, Georgia,
where everything great starts.
Yeah, but they were like an armed militia that, like a year before Trump was even elected, were getting armed and trained in the woods because they thought no matter who won the election, like it was just going to be fucking chaos.
Sure.
Right. But
what a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, right. And then now look at where our world's at. But so maybe they were right about it being chaos. But the point is that I saw that this was only about an hour away from Atlanta where I was going to be. So I got on the phone with this guy, General Blood Agent, who is the head of the 3% Security Task Force.
God damn it, that
General
kicks
Blood
ass.
Agent. And I was like terrified as fuck, but I was trying to convince him to let me come watch the election results with the 3% Security Task Force because I thought that would be riveting content.
Yeah.
Like, particularly because I thought they were going to lose.
Sure.
And up until the day of, I thought it was going to happen, but then on the day, he sort of, like, backed out. I think he maybe did some vetting, which, like, doesn't take very long before you, like, pull up my profile, and I'm in, like, short flower print shorts with, like, my ass out, and they're like, oh, yeah, he's not one of us. I did say get her done, like, 4 times on the phone, but, like, I guess my references are dated. But either way, so then I went out to Jackson County, and was like, I still wanted to find a story. So I was like going around in Jackson, Georgia, like asking different people about the 3% Security Task Force, trying to find this guy, General Blood Agent. And then I found out that it's not legal to film outside of a polling place. I learned that pretty quick.
Yeah. Sure.
But then I went to like election viewing parties. So like I went to the Republican viewing party in Jackson County. Like everyone that was watching, like I was live streaming it, and all my friends thought it was funny too, because we still thought there was no way. This is like 6 p.m. We're like, there's no way he's gonna win. Like, isn't it cute? These guys are like coming out. So then I went to the Atlanta, Georgia Democratic Party viewing party, where they're like partying and they're like, they've like popping champagne and people are dancing because they're like assuming like Hillary's gonna win. But then like the results started coming in, and that was like the fucking most ghost yard of a building I've ever been in my life. Like people just sitting there with like their face in their hands, like all depressed. So I decided to go to the Young Republicans Party in Atlanta.
Sure.
And I got chased the fuck out of there like 6 times.
Sure.
I was wearing like flower print.
Right, because you're dressed like you.
But they were like so surprised and happy, and you could just see this like like they're already arrogant, but then like they now had like something to back it on.
It's like when you don't think you're gonna make a shot in pool, but then you do, and you have to pretend like you thought you were gonna make it the whole time.
Right, but like that. But if that shot in pool leads to like the death and oppression of like millions of people.
Yeah, so you really got to play it off.
Right. But so that was my like election day experience.
You go from concentrated face to smiling face, but millions of people just died.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'm down with that.
But yeah, that was my election day experience. I was just like,
that's fucking
I was
wild,
like
dude.
living it, and then like I did not expect it. Like nobody expected it to really turn out that way, but like I definitely did, and I was like having fun.
Yeah, no,
like,
for sure.
I was like fucking around with like the other side, like with the alt-right, like trying to get as close to him as I could because I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I have kind of a similar one. I went down to Austin, and I was on stage doing a show where like we had the results coming in on a projector behind us, and the concept of the show is like to roast the country or whatever, I guess, as it's going on, and like. But the screen's behind you, so, like, as you're performing, you're just looking at this room full of people who are slowly, like, their smiles are fading.
Yeah, because it's
like,
not funny anymore.
You're just like, what the fuck? Like, what's your problem, And then you turn around and, like, the Bible Belt's just turning into a red swastika, and, like... and there was...
Texas. Just like I was in Georgia. Like, Atlanta itself may be safe-ish, like,
Yeah.
but, like...
Yeah.
But, like, around it is Georgia. Just like around Austin is, like, you're still in Texas.
Yeah, well, so, like, but we were in a comedy club, so, like, most people were, like, bummed out, but there was just one table. It's a comedy club, so it's, like, table 8 or whatever with a big fucking plate of nachos. And they were
loving it.
They were stoked, and they were just, they could not understand why everyone else was so bummed out. It fucking sucked.
Can we get some more Brano and vodkas over here?
Yeah.
Who else was on this comedy show?
Chris Cubis was on it. And Lisa Friedrich,
okay,
Mike McRae, a bunch of Austin darlings. Matt Bearden was running it. I don't know if you know him. He's a cool cat.
Shout out to all the Austin homies.
Yeah, definitely. Follow them all on the internet. I'm just going to say that from now on. Follow this person in life. Jesus. General Blood Orange.
General Blood Agent.
Blood Agent, sorry.
It's probably dangerous for me to be saying his name. I don't know.
Oh,
not really.
Fair enough.
No, because I put out a video where I'm talking to him on the phone, and I'm talking about that I'm talking to a guy named General Blood Agent, so I guess it's okay.
Oh, don't worry. Nobody listens to this podcast.
Like, he's not really mad because, like, they won that day.
Right.
Like,
they don't give a fuck.
Like, yeah.
What do you think he's up to right now?
Well, I've checked in from time to time to sort of snoop and see what this organization is up to. A lot of it was like undercover events to keep Confederate monuments, and our monuments are under attack. Like all that.
Yeah, those guys love statues so much. What? I don't even think about statues.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of understand because, like, I grew up near Buffalo, and we have statues to the 4 Super Bowls that the Bills lost.
Oh,
so,
that's
like,
badass.
That's sort of how, like, the Confederacy is.
Is there an OJ statue up there?
His name's still on the Wall of Fame.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he was not guilty, technically.
Right.
And he was also, like, the leading running back in, like, Buffalo Bills history,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait for the liberals to take that statue down. Huh?
Not in Buffalo. Like, they're the place that, like, Colin Kaepernick said he was booed the worst, which is, like, real sad for me. Like, It hurts.
Jesus Christ.
It hurts.
I was
like, I wasn't like, I didn't have a choice in being like a Buffalo fan. I'm still sort of conflicted about the whole NFL thing right now, but like, my dad was a season ticket holder before I was born. Like, my parents were going to games with me, like, pregnant in the womb. It's like, have you ever seen the movie Buffalo 66, like the Vincent Gallo movie?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's fucking real life.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's what it's like there. Like, I didn't get to choose, like, you know, if I just, like, stopped rooting for the Bills, like, I wouldn't have anything to talk to about to, like, my dad or the rest of my family or, like, everyone I grew up with. It's just, like, that.
God, dude, I don't want to imagine a movie where a life where a Vincent Gallo movie is real life.
Yeah.
Where King Crimson is always playing and he's
Yeah.
walking around trying to seem like a cool, like, hip-hop guy.
Time, you know. I met him before, and it was, like, the weirdest experience ever.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was at this festival called Desert Days Festival, which is, like, about 2 hours from L.A., like, just past where they do Coachella, but it's on, like, a dry lake bed. So it's, like, the psych rock version of Coachella, so, like, it's really weird. But he played a set where no one was allowed to take any pictures or even have their phone out before he would come on stage. And he just played guitar for like an hour and a half and said about 5 words at like 2 in the morning in the middle of a fucking desert.
Yeah, it sounds like that motherfucker.
Yeah. But then like I got to meet him and I was wearing like a Buffalo Bills sweatshirt, like a vintage one. So I have a picture with Vincent Gallo where I'm shaking his hand wearing a Bills sweatshirt, but he's staring a fucking hole. He's got like serial killer eyes. Just like, it's the creepiest
Well, he
picture
always looks like that.
ever.
He always looks like he's trying to look really fucking intense and intellectual and not like he's like 4 feet tall or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah.
official Pod Damn America stance on what's his face, Vincent Gallo.
Vincent Gallo.
Is
He's a fucked up individual
weird. He's
from
weird.
what I've gathered and what I've heard, and like not really been too much of a friend to women or other human beings in general, particularly when he's making his art.
Yeah,
like,
no, I bet.
everyone is a sacrifice for his art, apparently, from what I've gathered. But like Buffalo 66 is still like close to my heart because like it's real.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, cool. Let's see. I think that should about wrap up this section. This is gonna be like a 3-part thing, so we got a couple of different things to do. But thank you for coming on and telling us about Stand Up Fight Back.
Yeah, Stand Up Fight Back, coming to a city near you, including this city here in New York with the one and only Jake Flores.
Hey,
on Tuesday,
New York
November
Zone.
7th. I have them all over the country. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, everything. I'm Mike Gamms. I'm the only Mike Gamms, so any Mike Gamms that you find is likely to be me.
Was that an Eminem rap? That was awesome.
That was very close.
So
I'm
will the
very
real
impressed.
Mike Gamms please step up or stand up, fight back?
Yeah,
Will
there
the
you
real
go.
Mike Gamms please stand up, fight back?
That's an awfully
I also
hot
have
coffee
those,
pot right
yes,
there.
I also have those words tattooed on my body. So, like, in case you're wondering my level of commitment to this,
You have the
It's
word
tattooed-
stand up, fight
tattooed
back.
I do.
Okay, I thought you meant you had the Eminem.
No, I have stand up, fight back. I had the tattoo before the show, but I knew that I was going to do something called that.
Hell yeah.
Just because, you know, like, stand up, fight back.
Sure.
Or stand up.
Of course.
And we're fight back. Like, it's pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to explain it to you, of all people.
It's a very common activist rally cry, and I think I get the play on words
Because we're, like,
because
stand
we're stand-up comedians.
You know, like, sometimes we do that thing where we stand up. Right now we're doing sit down,
hey,
but we're also fighting back still.
yeah.
Because this is...
I'm fighting front. What do you think of that?
Fighting.
I don't know. Cool. Well, yeah. Please come out and check it out tomorrow night / tonight if you're listening to this.
and follow me on Twitter at Feral Jokes.
Yeah, follow him on Twitter at Feral Jokes, and I'm at Ceviche Poppy. No, that's Carlos, obviously, and you're on Twitter as
Mike Gamms.
Mike
But I don't
Gamms.
really tweet that much.
Yeah, you're not addicted to Twitter like me
No,
over
I'm
here.
just addicted to Facebook for the most part, and Instagram.
Well, I'm addicted to all of them, and I'm trying to quit smoking right now.
I'm
so
addicted to that too.
check out me on the internet way too much. I'm sorry. I'm very angry online.
I just wanted to give a shout out to my friend Tim Dillon if you're listening.
Oh yeah, friend
That's Tim Dillon.
friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Tim Dillon.
Oh man,
Did somebody
he's
say my name? What's going on?
yeah. Oh my God, he's here. Tim.
Yeah. What?
Tim, do you have anything to plug before we finish up this portion of the show?
Yeah, down with Antifa.
Okay. Yeah, the Antifa Super Soldiers.
Can you recommend a good bus tour?
Yeah, you're gonna want to take the Canarsie Local 167.
You sound like him.
Well,
I don't know that well, but you sound like him.
It's got that Jersey thing going on. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for
I just
joining
know
us.
him well enough to call him out on your podcast. Apparently.
He'll whatever. He'll either hear this or not hear it. I don't give a shit. Nobody threatens me in my DMs and tells me to leave town and gets away with it, except for Tim. He pretty much got away with it. He has more money than me. I don't give a shit, bitch.
One more shout out. Shout out to my
Do
dear
it.
friend Brody Stevens, wherever you are.
Yeah.
You fucking
other
crazy giant sack of turds that stand in front of the microphone. Okay.
Yeah, other friend of the show, Brody
Yes, friend of
Stevens.
the show.
Enjoy it, Antifa.
Yeah.
Is he here too? All right.
I prefer to pronounce it Antifa.
Yeah, I don't. I prefer to say Antifa.
I just don't fucking say it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really knows.
I've only heard the word said about a total of 15 times, and 12 of them are from Jake Flores.
Yeah. However Fox News says it, just say it the other way or some shit. I don't know. Anyway, enjoy it. I always like to do Brody and go N-word it because I think he's kind of racist.
Oh, is that what he does?
Racist Brody Stevens is back.
I don't
America's
think
favorite warm-up comic.
yeah.
Coming to an untelevised TV audience near you.
Goddamn right, dude. All right, we'll be back with a little bit of our history and shit in a minute. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know I said we were just gonna jump to the next part and finish this segment with Mike here, but as soon as we turned the mics off, we started talking about Brody Stevens, and then a really interesting story came up. So
Yeah.
let's go back through it.
Okay, so I'll give you the fact-based version of the story. Is, you know, I knew Brody a little bit, but not enough that he would really know me, but like from doing some shows together. But he's the warm-up guy for At Midnight, where he, you know, worked up the crowd before the show starts, right? And Brooks Wheelan was on At Midnight, and at the time, like, I'd been friends with Brooks Wheelan. He had done my show a few times, and like I'd seen him around. And I'd been hanging out with Jesse Camp, the former MTV VJ, who like he won the I Want to Be a VJ contest.
If you could see how Mike was dressed, you'd be like, "Oh, yes, of
Me
course."
and Jesse
you hang out
are
with
like
Jesse
brothers. Like
Camp.
we traveled the country together, like living in my Honda Accord for months.
Sure,
and,
I
like,
believe it.
Yeah, all this stuff. But either way, me and Jesse were going to go to a taping of At Midnight to see Brooks Wheelan, who was on the show that day.
Sure.
And we were there, and so when you're like a guest of someone, they sit you like in a certain section in the crowd, and Brody knows that because he's the host, or not the host. He's the warm-up guy, that
yeah.
doesn't air on television.
Yeah.
Right. But he just looked at me and Jesse Camp and our like 15 different patterns or whatever and just assumed that we were assholes. So his entire warm-up act, he was just digging into us. Like about these assholes and VIP. And at first I'm like thinking it's funny.
Yeah.
But then he just like kept doing it over and over and over again, where it was like making the audience uncomfortable. Like even once the taping had started, he still just kept laying in to me and Jesse, like just for no reason. It's like we were there doing like what we clapped when we were supposed to clap or whatever. But then about like 2 weeks later, I was doing 51st jokes at the Roosevelt Hotel with Brody.
Yeah.
He was on the show, and I went up to him and I was like, hey man, you know, I don't know if you remember, but me and my friend Jesse were at Midnight. We were like, you were giving us a hard time in the VIP section. I sort of said it like laughing, thinking he'd be like, oh yeah, that was funny. He was like, yeah, you guys are fucking assholes, and he walked away.
Wow.
Yeah,
man.
like 2 weeks later, when I'm like on the same show as him, he was still just like, no, you guys were fucking assholes. I was like, we were just sitting there and had loud clothing on. Like,
What a positive person.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I went and saw At Midnight tape when they did New York because like they gave me free tickets because they did like a giveaway on Twitter where they were like, tell us why you deserve At Midnight tickets, and me and somebody else both went. Me and Omar Shakad just both went. He went lost a massive amount of followers playing at midnight games, and then I just went, me too, and they fucking gave both of us tickets, right? And that was cool of them, like that was fun or whatever. But if you've never been to a live TV taping, it is not fun. It's not an enjoyable time. Like those people on TV that are like clapping and screaming and laughing and stuff aren't doing it organically. They're doing it because Brody Stevens is screaming in their fucking face, like, "All right, a little bit more excited now, one more time." It sucks.
Look at these assholes. Wow.
Is it Stephen Brody Stevens or Brody Stephen Brody's?
I think it's just Stephen Brody. It just keeps going, man. I don't think it ever stops. I don't think it ever sleeps.
Like, if I were to picture a Steve and a Brody and combine them together, you would get Brody Stevens.
Oh, god damn. All right, well, thank you for...
If you're listening, Brody,
I don't know.
I don't know how to finish that sentence, but yeah.
I don't know.
So there's my delightful tale.
I've got one. If you're listening, Brody, stop watching Fox News, you fucking psycho.
He's just waiting to see when Tim Dillon's on Reddit again.
Yeah. The whole point of the first few episodes of this podcast we've done is that Antifa is not a group of Ninja Turtles enemies that are coming to destroy free speech and take your trash can lids away. Listen to the show. It's a thing.
I thought
anyway.
the point of this podcast was to come on and talk shit and say alienating things about other comedians.
That's the second point.
Okay, because that's I think all I accomplished here.
Welcome to my world, baby. All right, well, thanks for sharing that story. I can cut it out if you want, but
no, it's good as long as what's Brody's feeling on the Second Amendment?
More guns.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Jesus. He only has 2 catchphrases. I wish there was more wordplay I could do here, but I think we're positive. It's like positive energy and then enjoy it.
Yeah.
How do you make
Bullshit.
How do you make that about guns? I don't know.
I think that's maybe only the second comedian I've ever publicly talked shit about. So I'm pretty good. The other being Eliza Schlesinger, because fuck her.
Sure, yeah. No, what was she was the World War II joke person? Yeah, fuck all that
among
noise.
Other things. She showed up at one of my so I know this I have a friend who runs like this women of color like empowerment group in Los Angeles called like 50 Shades of Bay.
Sure.
Right? And they throw like rad fucking parties in LA where they're just like the best parties, right? And Eliza Schlesinger was at one once. And on stage is my friend and her whole group of like the 50 Shades of Bay girls just like dancing and having a good old time the whole night. Eliza, or Elijah, whatever the hell her name is, Eliza goes on stage at the very end and starts like twerking, embarrasses herself, and is sort of laughed off the stage.
Yeah.
But a photographer took a picture of her twerking, and she took that photo and posted it on Instagram and said, "This party was dead before I got here, and I showed all these young girls how to start the twerk wave."
Yeah, sure. Of course.
So she essentially came in like Columbus to a women of color party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
sure.
I put her on blast for it because I was there. I was standing 5 feet from her when it happened, and it was like my friend's party. So, so I just want to bring that up again too. So just in case I hadn't talked enough shit on your podcast, like also Eliza Schlesinger. So.
Yeah, dude, let's goss. No, I have a Schlesinger story too, man. She fucking the one of the first roast battles I did at South by, and before it was like a TV show and shit. A few years ago, I roast battled Kath Barbadoro, who's my friend. And most of the jokes I wrote, I always try to go smart with roast battles. Like I wrote jokes about like white girl feminism and shit, but like. You gotta do like some fat jokes and stuff, you know? And I did a pretty mild fat joke at my friend Kath and got like really negative points from Eliza about,
she was a judge.
Yeah, about like, you know, can you believe this guy went there? Meanwhile, like every other joke was like, oh, you're a fucking Mexican spick or whatever. And like that's what roast battle is. Like every time I've ever tried to not do the 5 basic dumb fucking offensive jokes that you go into a roast battle, I get laughed off the stage for like trying to make a joke about something other than calling the person a pedophile or a whore or whatever. So like she just put me in this impossible situation where it's like, you know, oh, that's you know, that's debased of you to be making a fat joke. Meanwhile, the show is fucking roast battle. Like, what is the show? You know,
like every time I've done roast battle, it's like sort of felt like high school, except for like more creative ways to call me a fag.
Yeah,
you know, but like that's been my experience. But I will say this one last thing. So the last time I did the roast battle, I battled my friend Christina Marie Leonard at the Comedy Store, and I said that Christina posts daily hashtag selfie videos, hashtag workout videos on Instagram. If she was any more of a basic white girl, she'd have to change her name to Eliza Schlesinger. And they did not like that at the Comedy Store because, like, she's there every day. You know?
Yeah, but fuck those, man. I mean, like, what is the point of a roast show? Like, when I did that roast battle, I don't remember what I did, but I got Matt Bronger, and he was, like, one of the judges, and he was really fucking cool about it. Like, you know, we got that the point of the roast battle show was to roast each other. Like, it was fine. I don't know. Comedy's dead.
Comedy's dead.
I've had fun every time I've done it, but I'm 0-2. I just go because, like, I'm easy to make fun of, like, because... Like, I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah, you get it. Like, you can't see me.
You're wearing tights right now?
I am. I'm always wearing leggings. Like a massive collection of leggings.
You look like I'm on acid right now.
Yeah, I've heard that. My friend Benjamin Hoffman, great comic from New Orleans, he says I look like if Lisa Frank had a brother that was really into bath salts.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So that's the one I usually go with. Yeah.
Yeah. You look a little bit like... Do you know Josh Androsky?
I do. Are you telling me I look like Josh Androsky? Well, I do have a mustache today and like a really ugly patterned shirt on. So
yeah,
like...
you got the Drosk mustache.
Oh.
But I don't know, druggier. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't mean to bum you out.
No, you didn't bum.
Like Josh.
You didn't bum me out. I just was like, you know, Josh is a fine comic. I don't know him super well, but he's progressive and, you know, like uses his voice to do a lot of different stuff, so I give him props for that. I don't know him super well, but I know that he tries to use his platform to, you know, push ideas as well. So
he's an actual friend of the show.
Yeah.
Me and Josh are homies.
Yeah, so I don't, like I said, I don't know him, but I seen from afar what he does, which is like similar to you, where he's not just telling jokes, but he, you know, he has things that are important that he wants to talk about, and he tries to get that in there.
Yeah,
so
important
I respect that.
things like taking down Brody Stevens and Tim Dillon and Elijah Schlesinger with my dumb podcast. All right, cool.
Yes.
Let's fucking hit the brakes.
Any more inside baseball we can talk here? I mean,
I
just
don't
to
know.
completely alienate our non-comic audience base.
I think we got the light on this one.
All right, Pod Damn
Sean
America.
Patton. Let's talk about it. I'm just kidding. All
Pod
right.
Damn America, everyone.
Word. We'll be back. All right. Welcome back to Pod Damn America, motherfucker. So for the second half of the show tonight, I've got with us the great Anders Lee.
Hey, Anders Lee here.
Anders Lee is here.
That's
Welcome. Anders from the Left Jest podcast, from Paid Protest, the popular paid protest comedy show funded by George Soros.
That's right. You guys have both done it. Thank you for being on it.
Don't thank me. Thank George, the man.
He wanted to book Dice last month, but we said no.
Is Dice Man socialist?
Yeah, he doesn't know he is, but
Hickory dickory dock.
yeah.
Listen, I don't like titles, okay?
The bourgeoisie can suck my cock.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, how do I rhyme this? Oh, it ends with cock. Yeah, you just throw all the Marx words in the middle there.
Right.
Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, seized the means of productions and stuffed it in a cunt. Okay.
Yahoo!
Andrew Dice DSA.
For a while, I was thinking there should be like an Andrew Nice Clay.
Oh, it's
you
been
know,
done.
just like
It's
been done.
Every
Well, yeah,
iteration has been done. There's an Andrew Dice Gay that I think like one of those Opie and Anthony guys did one time. It's pretty funny.
Well, is he still in a? Well, he's always in a feud with them. It seems.
I don't know. I haven't kept up on the Dice Man in a while.
Yeah, it's hard to.
He's doing okay out here. He's doing the Comedy Store almost every night.
Have you run into him? Have you had any run-ins?
I've seen him once, and he has a sitcom on Showtime. But It's Dice Man now on stage doing dad material, like about taking a van with a bicycle to the park, but it's Dice. It's the most surreal thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, that's weird.
He has 2 sons.
Yeah, it sounds like emo or some shit.
Yeah, they have like this weird rock band called LA Rocks. I don't know why I know all this about him, but wouldn't it be interesting if he had a daughter instead?
It would have been interesting, but I believe he have
2 sons.
4 boys.
2 sons. Yeah, it's like the family dynamic would be a lot more entertaining if he had a daughter.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah,
because he probably would be a little bit less everything he is. You know,
right?
You'd have pulled a Jay-Z or something.
The thing I want to reiterate and make absolutely clear is that it's all an act. Like, people forget he is like the original Larry the Cable Guy. Like, Andrew Dice Clay is a character that he took on because his regular stand-up wasn't going well, and then the dancer became the dance. And a lot of people don't know that about Dice.
Yeah,
interesting. It's like True Detective. You become the monster you're hunting.
Right. Dice is a flat circle. Yeah.
That's the only way he gets going. Because I remember he was on this newscast a few years ago, and they keep doing this. They'll put him on a newscast every few years, and of course he'll say something like outrageous, but that's just because like that's the only way he gets people to book him or like pay attention to him.
Yeah. Well, we got to the bottom of it. The thing about those guys, though, is like, yeah, it's a character, but is the real person inside of that like a normal person? You know, probably not. Like, I'm friends with Gallagher on Facebook. He's out of his fucking mind. He's not smashing like pumpkins all the time and shit. He's like a weird libertarian or some shit. So he's yelling about.
A gay trader.
He's always like harassing women online and shit like that. As long as that's a topic of the news right now, keep your eyes. Watch your drink around Gallagher. I don't trust him. And I sound like I'm joking, but I really mean that. He like posted some weird shit the other day on Facebook where he was like, making kissy lips at his fucking camera and was like, did anyone want to kiss me tonight? It was really gross. Yeah, no, add Gallagher. Well, wait for a while and Gallagher will eventually add you on Facebook if
he's blowing up.
Catches wind that you're a comedian, and he will creep you the fuck out.
That's how you know you made it, once you get the old Gallagher request.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of libertarianism and
boo.
Yeah, there you go. Check that out. It's a segue. I want to talk about a little bit with Anders about a thing I ran into him at the other night. There was a debate hosted in a huge hall in Manhattan entitled "Capitalism: a Debate." Right, and it was 2 people from like Jacobin and 2 people from Reason.com. Basically having it out once and for all, WrestleMania, SummerSlam style, between the sort of socialist ideologies regarding capitalism as a force, that needs to be curbed in order for our lives to be better. It needs to be sort of dealt with or gotten rid of altogether. And then there were these Reason.com people who were very much of the belief that, the profit motive actually makes our lives better, and everything we have, we owe to it. And, Marxism is silly and all this stuff. And it was fucking hilarious. What'd you think of it, Durs?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I mean, going in, like, we were talking about this a little bit after. Like, I feel like libertarianism has, well, quote-unquote libertarianism has kind of, like, waned in the past couple years. And I was remembering, like, before the whole sort of specter of the Bernie bro, I remember I used to love thumbing my nose at the idea of these, like, white male, like, stoner libertarian dudes,
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And at the same time, I'm, like, going to community college and, like, living with my parents. But, yeah, it is, like, a junk ideology, really. I mean, classical libertarianism is a different thing. Like, that is what it used to mean. Like, anarchism and communism was, like, libertarianism. But
right.
In the U.S., it has this very specific definition that's really just, like, a sort of updated version of conservatism.
That's what is so like interesting to me about it, because like I first encountered it like, you know, when I was young, actually, like in high school and college, and I like someone like hipped me to Ayn Rand. Ugh.
Ayn.
What a lame thing to be like smoking pot and sneaking out of the house to fucking, you know, get into when you were like a teenager or whatever. But I fully sort of went through the motions with it. I mean, arguably, no, they're libertarian people would be like, you don't even know. But you know, but I that also lived in like Austin, which is a place where like that's a very attractive ideology to people, because people down there are, the government is just so fucking crushed by the conservative thing. You know, culturally, everyone, like, liberalism and all that shit isn't big either, because everyone is very convinced of the concept that big government is like a root of a lot of evil and stuff like that. So there's this weird like individualism where people sit around all day in bars and shit and like talk these things out like theoretically and semantically, and like really, you know, come to these libertarian conclusions that like you know, drugs should be like what was the slogan? They brought this up in the debate. There was some libertarian candidate whose slogan was like, I want my gay married neighbors to be able to protect their pot plants with guns. Like that was their appeal. Like, see, this is so smart that it solves all these social issues and stuff like that. But it largely like it is a junk ideology, because like it doesn't play out well at all in real life. But there is like a root of it that was like, yeah, like anarchic, like that, like Chomsky describes himself as like a socialist libertarian. There are anarchists that describe themselves as anarchist libertarians, and the specific guts of it that go into those ideologies are, you know, something, I don't know, I don't quite know how to wrap my head around them, but I do trust people of like that end of it that seem to know a little bit more about what they're talking about. It's just that now we've got this current version of it that's real fucking gross. And the reason that's interesting to me is because I know somebody who like recently like disavowed libertarianism, and I was like, that's wow, okay, how did that happen? And they were like, well, you know, they were looking at me being crazy on Facebook and talking about all this DSA stuff and going like, I think the DSA is going to go the same way that Tea Party did, because according to this person, the Tea Party, like, early on was very much, like, about, you know, ending the drug war and all these things that, like, you could actually get behind, and then it sort of got hijacked by getting, like, bigger and having all this fucking gross money coming into it and stuff like that.
Well, right, the Koch brothers specifically targeted the Tea Party and started injecting all that fucking American citizens fucking organization, or the cabal of evil money into it, and hijacked it completely. Yeah,
the Reason.com people at this fucking debate were like, I was taking notes the whole time. One of the things that they said was, the Koch brothers do fund our magazine.
Like, bragged about it, yeah.
Yeah, they like made it a point, like people were gonna be like, cool. You know?
Well, yeah, it seemed like just like a contrarian fucking thing, because like the hall was overwhelmingly pro-socialism.
It was very funny because like this was definitely an away game for the libertarian people, and I think that they kind of had a good attitude about it. Like they definitely knew coming into like Manhattan and having this debate, they were gonna get squashed, and they wanted to just get their shit out there. But it was really fucking funny because like, you know, they would say something really weird about like personal responsibility, and then just a single person would like woo, like real fucking hard from like the back of their rafters, and then everything else, like everyone would just fucking laugh in their face and shit. It was so fucking funny.
Also, the fact that they bragged about being funded by the Koch brothers, when like the fact that they have to accept donations just completely undermines the premise of Reason.com or magazine being like a commodity that people want to buy, because like they're a crony capitalist institution by their own logic. I mean, and the flip side of that is Jacobin is like an incredibly successful capitalist business.
Right, but Jacobin isn't arguing that they're not.
Yeah,
you know?
They're like,
or that the world is better, like in the way opposite to what they're arguing or whatever. Like that guy Vivek Chibber, I think is his name. He was great, and like what they sort of tried to stick that to him and go like, you know, is your life not better because of capitalism? And he just went like, yes, it is. Like, what the fuck do you think he's gonna say? You know? And then had like sort of the the guts to say, but that doesn't mean all the people that work for me are, and like that's the problem is the system or whatever. I thought he was great. Like I thought he made a lot of great points, but they were very sad. The reason people.
Yeah, that dude Nick Gillespie, who I remember seeing interviews. I've been seeing interviews with him for a long time, and he is just like the smuggest dude. Wears all black.
Yeah.
All the time.
He's got the Dice Man thing going.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so.
Oh man, every shitty fucking cigarette smoking on stage like a truth teller comedian, they all fucking dive into this weird black jacket like dad haircut thing, like where that idea of cool from like the Dennis Leary, Bill Hicks era of the 90s somehow makes them like these rogue intellectuals. They've all got this fucking weird like psychosis where like they're somehow convinced they're the smartest person in the room when it's like everyone else is like, I thought about that in 8th grade. It's really bizarre.
I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm just the one willing to tell it like it is, man.
Yeah. I'm aware that the room isn't even real. What do you think about that? Yeah, that guy was kind of a fucking joke. God, what else did they fucking talk about? One thing that made me laugh really hard was afterwards when no one was at their merch booth. That was kind of like they had these T-shirts for sale, and no one was buying them, which is why the Koch brothers fund Reason.com. The T-shirts were like kind of like sex, drugs, and like something else, the free market or something like that.
Yeah.
But at one point, someone made a point about the profit motive, and they sort of debated that out. And the other guy on the left, on the Jacobin side, sort of like
Bhaskar Sunkara.
Yes, that guy. Sort of conceded this point where he's like, these two ideologies we're arguing over, don't like in the very not too distant future end up with a perfectly utopian society. Like it just is a way of moving towards that. And he sort of like made this remark where he's like, look, in this socialist society, that's not going to get rid of heartache. And I think he's trying to be poetic about it. He's saying like indigestion, like whatever. And like so this libertarian woman goes, well, think about, why do you have, solutions to heartache and indigestion? Why do you have Tinder and Pepto-Bismol? These are the gifts of capitalism. Which, like, what? Like, you saying, like, we wouldn't have Pepto-Bismol if it wasn't, like, if alternatively our history had been one of a socialist, like, country? Or, if we switch to socialist right now, like, does Pepto-Bismol go away? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's going to be rations, so everyone gets exactly one drop, whether they need it or not.
You get one slice of bread, one drop of Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah. You have to wait in line in this 1984-esque nightmare to receive your Victory Bismol.
Right.
No summer rations for anyone.
Yeah, they use that, like, Cold War shit, like, constantly.
Well, I think that's like goes back to one of the sort of the maxims that like a lot of that communism and like libertarianism used to go by, which is to each their own ability, to each their own need. Like that's what the system. I mean, all this stuff about like this super powerful state that's repressive and stuff. Those are the way history is played out. But if you go back to the core of what it is, it's these things that like. No gods, no masters. Like that's what libertarianism used to mean, and unfortunately, we forgot about the masters part somewhere along the way. So, like when I talk to people now about like Marxism or socialism or whatever, they can't get past the Stalinism,
right?
And that makes it impossible to have a conversation with somebody if they. And to their credit, the Jacobin guys pretty quickly said like, we're not defending. Mao. We're not defending the way all these things have gone with like authoritarian, all-powerful states. Like we need a new system that isn't like that, and it's also not capitalist.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good point they made like for me that's something like I feel like I feel more radical than I actually am, like talking about this stuff because growing up in Texas, like that Cold War shit really gets into you, and like somebody you're related to is like, he's a socialist now. Like it's crazy, even though it's like very much has been a thing in our political history. Yada yada yada. It's like not that drastic of a move to be interested in this end of politics or whatever, but that like Leninism scare or whatever, I thought that they did a really good job at making 2 points about that, which is that if you want to bring up like Venezuela or whatever, you want to bring up these like like Stalin and all this stuff as examples, like you also have to bring up failed capitalist examples like fucking Franco and I can't really know
look at Argentina.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Right, yeah, Pinochet, all that shit, right? And so it's just sort of a fallacious argument. It's just kind of bad or whatever. But the other thing he brought up that I think is not ever talked about because, like, I don't know why it's not. I mean, maybe not enough people even know that this is sort of true because, like, the history of the socialist movement in America has been erased so hard. But, like, the very first people to break from, like, Stalinism were the American left, like the other left, were very quick to separate themselves from that and criticize it. It wasn't like this binary thing we have where it was like, oh yeah, the American right was the way we would imagine it mathematically to work out, like that they were fighting the Ruskies or whatever. I mean, the entire country was so fucking different back then. Everything was all over the place. So there's a lot of like babies being thrown out with bathwater and shit like that here.
Right. Yeah, and unfortunately all those people got so like, I mean, that was kind of one of the objects of COINTELPRO, which also sabotaged like the Black Panthers and others. They were taking like the Trotskyist left, people were criticizing Stalin and the Soviet Union and dividing them and like infiltrating and just fucking with them for decades to the point now until recently, like socialism, it's either you're a Maoist and you're supporting North Korea, or you're just trapped in these like sectarian conflicts about shit someone said like 30 years ago.
I played a game of Settlers of Catan last night, and I always play red, because I'm an asshole. But I went full tanky. I made my pieces into a giant red fist, and
nice.
I won Settlers of Catan. So, what's your argument there, libertarians? I think it works. Even though that game makes no sense. There's no indigenous people. The island's shaped like a hexagon honeycomb thing. It's just got very strange resource, laid out. There's no history. Actually, you know what? I think the only way libertarianism would actually work in this world is in like a real Catan situation, like a blank slate, where everyone started like evenly. Like, well,
right.
not that evenly because you have to roll the dice.
All the kingdoms start evenly. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, someone still gets to go first in terms of laying out their pieces, but that's a natural advantage that will be evened out by the invisible hand of the market, if I am to understand it. Have you ever played Catan? Is this making any sense?
I've observed. Well, I technically have played, but I didn't do a lot of actual playing. It was more other people playing, advising me on what to do. Which is, I think, how a lot of the games go.
It's a dumb game. So yeah,
I was essentially the Trump in that scenario, and the investors were telling me what to do with my non-existent money.
So you were playing the Rogue?
Yes, I was the Team Rogue.
The only board game that really is the capitalism really shows its face in its Monopoly. You're literally building hotels and shit. It's Trump the board game,
Yeah.
Oh, and it turned so ugly so fast.
And you wind up in jail. I've heard that Monopoly was actually supposed to originally was like a kind of a radical like
was
critical
it like a critique?
Game. Yeah.
Oh, that fucking rules.
Yeah, I think it was like the 30s or 40s. It was some like.
It's like Bernie when he was a kid was yelling about the banker the whole time.
I'm sure. Honest to God, I'm sure the Bernie Sanders in the 40s played Monopoly as a kid, and it was from some like socialist guy in his neighborhood.
Yeah. Oh, that rules, man.
Yeah.
I gotta look into that. I did not know that, but it makes perfect sense. I one time went to a thrift store, and this is years and years ago, before Trump was running for president or anything, and he's had a million like failed TV shows and stuff like that. But there was a Trump board game that me and Chris Cubas bought, and we took it home and tried to play it, and it was like, I don't think it was an Apprentice board game. I think it was just like a Donald Trump the board game.
Jesus.
And,
Yeah.
it was
That's a real thing for sure.
This was pre-Apprentice.
the game came out in like the 90s or something. It was an
Wow.
old
Yeah.
board
Was
game.
it Art of the Deal or something?
It was
like
probably something like that. I mean, it's so
about
weird.
making deals.
I think it was a knockoff Monopoly thing where it was different enough that they couldn't sue Trump for making it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty fucking close.
Right, yeah, it was called like Technocracy or something like that. But no, with the only thing I remember about the game was it had to do with like real estate investing and shit like that, and you would bid on like parts of the board, and the whole game was predicated on this moment where like you know how like in Yahtzee you yell out like Yahtzee, so the whole game was you'd yell, I'm in the bidding, and then like when someone pushed you out, you go, I'm out of the bidding. So
Wow.
like me and Chris Cube was just yelling, I'm out of the bidding at each other, while just like slamming fucking, rail vodka or whatever. It was fun. I didn't know he was gonna become the president at the time, but that was pretty fucking weird. Yeah. So who do you think won the debate?
Well, like you said, it was an away game. I have my own biases.
The Libertarians had inverted colors on. Instead of wearing red, white, and blue, they were wearing mostly white with red and blue trim. It's a sports joke.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Sorry.
I could hear Andrew sweating from the phone.
That's something Libertarians and Socialists have in common is the non-sports.
Yeah, the room was full of nerds.
Yeah.
That was unifying.
Although the NFL draft, a lot of leagues drafts, they put the lowest ranked team, they give them the highest draft pick, which
Right.
you might argue is a socialist practice. But
You're not the first person I've heard make that point.
it means it's a good one. No, I mean I think
You mean one more reason for me to boycott the NFL this year,
Yeah.
Anders? That's all I need.
they're socialists.
Where's my goddamn Papa John's? Jalapeno, and I put pineapple on it. That's what Dr. Trump would want us to do.
That dude is so he's
Dr.
now.
Trump.
That's now the official pizza, right? That's like the.
Papa John is like freaking out right now because Nazis are like claiming Papa John's, and so he's having to release all these like, please, if you're a white nationalist, don't eat pizza, like my pizza. Like he's
Losing a lot of business there. Then.
he's fucked up every single like part of this foiling, like fucking crumbling company situation.
I feel like Starbucks, even if would still say like, "Hey, people against gay marriage, we still buy the shit though. Don't like stop shopping here."
Yeah,
like that's a bad move.
That's because they're better capitalists than Papa John. Unfortunately, he's I think he's just a drunk maniac.
See,
Yeah.
Papa John remembered where he came from a little bit too much. He's like, I'm from Philly, Blue Lives Matter. But you know what? You got to be a businessman first, and you got to follow the trends. You know what I'm saying?
Does he remember what his face used to look like? He has plastic surgery, right?
Papa John,
Probably,
I think he
yeah.
got the Joan
He looks like
Rivers
he's got a
treatment.
Play-Doh face.
He's got some Botox. Yeah, I never thought of it, but yeah, that's some Botox.
He's always shiny.
Well, he's got the grease.
Oh yeah, it comes straight off the pizza. Well, maybe the grease
Right.
that's on the pizza comes from his face. Oh no, that's what the garlic sauce is.
That stuff is so good.
Oh, it's Papa John's face sweat.
Yeah, they ring him out.
Don't let it cool down or it'll get solid.
Oh god, I'm gonna throw up. Yeah. So I don't know. Any more thoughts on this crazy fucking shit show we saw the other night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to. Yeah, I think the socialists won because the primary point that I feel like the reason people did not adequately rebut was about freedom, and I think that goes back to what the left has been, what it used to be. Communism used to be all about was freedom. But because of what's happened in the 20th century, we've lost sight of that, and everyone's lost sight of that. But they were talking about the workday and how like they kind of had to concede the point. Yeah, you're not free if you are in a place where you're on the clock. Like you decide, your employer decides when you pee. They decide when you leave. What you do, like what you say.
And then the rest of your time spent off the clock is preparing to go back.
Exactly.
On the clock.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I remember two things they said that fucking cracked me up. The first thing they said was, well, just so I don't forget okay, so the first thing they said was, every day you wake up and you make a choice to go to work. And that sort of like lends itself to, I've heard this ideology put out by them a lot of times where like the concept of having choices between things makes them naturally like correct themselves, and that's a very like Adam Smith, Ayn Rand concept. Like
Right.
I talked about the Fight for 15 one time, and I talked about my experience working at fucking Jimmy John's and all this shit, and how the Fight for 15 came out of a bunch of people that worked for Jimmy John's and like sort of formed this whole thing against them. And a friend of mine, a libertarian, went, well, it sounds like those guys found a better job. Like, haha, gotcha, right? This is the whole ideology is that like, we can correct the market from the victimized situation by choosing better jobs. But like, I don't have the time or will to explain why that clearly isn't fucking true. Like it doesn't sift out that way. Like you have to work somewhere. There's more of this thing than there is of that, yada, yada, yada. So that was a pretty laughable point. Like the idea that you somehow control the job market through your choice that you make every day by like choosing to go to the job or fucking them over by quitting and then going somewhere else. Like it does not work that way. It never has. Show me a situation in history where some people have changed like their own society that way. It doesn't fucking work. We're at the mercy of the economy and the fucking job market, and that's why like everyone in America isn't going to be a fucking entrepreneur all at the same time or whatever. But the other thing they said that fucking killed me was they were talking about this concept of like the 8-hour workday and like how it started off us not having that, and then now we got it. And anybody who's read your history books knows that happened because of socialism, to some extent anarchism. Like that was fought for with like blood and lives and shit.
And also children.
And children,
remember,
right?
Remember the children?
Yeah. Won't someone please think of the children? But that's what they. So that's these reason people brought up this idea. They said Eugene Debs didn't keep children out of the workplace. Technology did.
God.
Yeah, like in the way they've reimagined history,
because there's never been a child in the workplace.
There's
since,
still, yeah, they like make phones and shit. It makes no sense. That's the ultimate technology, No, it happened through solidarity and like unionization and all this shit, and like fighting against like someone had to get up and do that shit. It didn't naturally happen because when enough people buy shit, then it just creates wealth in a situation where like people will go like, hey, Tobias, my young child, come home now. You don't have to work anymore. We suddenly have enough money. Like no one ever has enough money or whatever. So that was pretty funny because they got dunked on pretty hard about that. Like people just laughed at that.
Yeah.
Fucking Tobias.
Yeah, like the best they could say was like, well, it is better than slavery, and then the reason people were like, well, yeah, it is better than slavery, and then they're like, hey, but that's an important point. It's better than slavery, okay? Like that's the best thing they could fucking say to that. The one thing I do think could have been driven home more or like mentioned better was because one of their Red is kind of cynical, but one of their core convictions was crap. They kept saying the word. We have all this crap because of capitalism, and they had like this sort of like reverence for crap, that this unapologetic love of just way too much shit in the world. And I think that's something they could have pointed out. Is like, well, not only do people not need all this crap that you love, it's also destroying our species.
Yeah,
like we can't sustain.
There's very much a limited amount of space and an environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird that they kept calling it crap. I felt like at some point they knew they were losing, so they just started like arguing against their own shit just to start winning.
Right. They'd see the point. They'd be like, education. That is a thing that I think is a public necessity and that we should invest in collectively. And then they pointed out, like, okay, well, why are we ending it there? Like, why is this the one thing that the fucking capitalist state eventually had to cede because of violent movements, that like this is the one thing you're okay with. Like, why not just being alive?
Yeah.
In general.
Another thing they said is I think Jacobin is like us and understands that jobs are a market and all this stuff, which is like is not. They just set up a fake argument, and they went, we can all agree that like the best situation for schools is not the way they put it, a school like a public school, which is like run like a prison. It's better if we have competing charter schools and shit like that, and like that really does away with the confounding like third variable, this little spurious other thing there, which is like the reason the public schools suck isn't because there isn't enough like competition, enough of a market. It's because there's no fucking money that goes to them.
Yeah.
Like because like look at our society, like the history of like like you did that with this whole argument about how it should be this other way,
Right, and then their counter thing is about like no child left behind and shit, and like the point behind that was to throw a bunch of money at just more bureaucracy that didn't end up going to the kids. Like none of the funds from that actually went to like lunch or like paying teachers or school faculty, properly. It's like there's a waste there, but like the fact is like the money's not going to education.
Dude, that's the funniest thing to me about like libertarianism is that like the biggest confounding variable in any argument is just like children. Like if you throw like a child at any libertarian argument, like for example like healthcare, right? So if there's an idea that the market works out like a situation where you have the best healthcare because you made all these decisions and worked your way up to the system and got the best shit, like what if a person sucked at that? What if they fucking blow? What if they're insane and they lose all their money and then a child is just born in that person's house? Like, what is a libertarian answer to that kid having shitty health care because their parent like has no arms or something?
That kid should save up their money and then build a bootstrap factory so they can pull themselves up by the bootstraps. That is probably the only option.
Okay, I have another question. This is very important. Who wears strap-on boots? Like, what is a bootstrap? Like, what is that? Is that like that little thing on the back?
Well, I've seen some boots that have kind of a tongue, a couple of tongues that you have to. I wouldn't call them straps though. They go through a buckle on the front of the boot.
I think.
But pull yourself up by the tongue. Well, you're also not gonna pull yourself up. Like what?
Yeah.
I think we need to update the vernacular and be like, you need to pull yourself up by the Velcros. I think that's what it should be from now on.
Well, then you would rip off the Velcro, but
get down there and pump up that little rubber basketball on the tongue of your shoes, and that will elevate you. You'll have big ups into the.
We're doing it. We're figuring it out.
It is a weird because like I knew a couple libertarians, but it is like a very interesting demographic mix. I mean, obviously they're all for the most part like white dudes.
Goatees.
Yeah. But they run the gamut from just like drug-addled like entrepreneur who like managed to fucking make shit work in the system without any like assistance from anyone else and is just insane as a result, and then like a bunch of entitled like privileged kids who are like it makes sense to them because they haven't actually had to work for anything.
Yeah, there are so many fucking libertarians who like don't live by their own system that they're preaching, like live off of their parents or significant other or the government. Like it's insane, like any weird situation that would completely turn that whole argument upside down. It happens fucking constantly. I don't know why this is exactly, but apparently there is a large contingent of libertarians in the tech support community.
I could see that, yeah.
I don't know what to do with that information though. Like if it has something to do with
I think I might be able to weigh in, man. As someone who used to work in the tech support world, who managed a team of nerds, we had a guy on our team named Jones. His real name was Steve, but we called him Jones because he wore an Indiana Jones hat and told everybody to call him Jones. We also had a guy named Stash.
They all wear those fucking hats.
Yeah, they all wear those hats. We had a guy named Stash because he had a giant wax mustache, and that was his personality.
Sure.
So there's a lot of void minds in the world of tech support that are easily influenced by Reddit or some stronger voiced male. You know, I can definitely see it. I can definitely see a lot of them being libertarians.
Yeah, I see. The Indiana Jones guys like it belongs in a museum. Yeah. The Federal Reserve belongs in a museum. Or just gold.
Yes, he's weak-willed and overweight. Yes, that's Jones.
Oh, he's a fat Indiana Jones.
Oh, there's no fit people in tech support.
Yeah,
What's wrong with you?
yeah. Oh man, dude, fucking making fun of. It's so funny when like nerds dress like they're extremely ripped role models, but they're fat. Like I heard a good one a while back. A guy called a Star Wars guy Admiral Snack Bar. That was pretty fun.
It's like I feel like most people who wear Under Armour are not like what Under Armour is supposed to go on.
It's like a sausage casing.
Yeah.
It's there to hold everything in. Buffet the Vampire Slayer. How about that one?
That's good.
It's pretty fun. I made that one up.
One bites.
Yeah. I think that's all I got. India. Nope. Got nothing else on him. All right. Well, you guys got anything else you want to kick around before we get the fuck out of here?
Rick and Portly.
Nice.
Rick and Portly.
Rick and
Instead
Portly
of Rick
from
and
the Off Mic.
gotcha.
Little fat Morty.
Rick and Portly.
All right, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Well, I have I see you guys. You know a lot of libertarians. You like grew up with a lot.
I know more than I'd like to.
Yeah. Do you think that his kind of like there aren't as many, like they kind of a lot of them went off into either our Bernie Bro territory or like alt-right, or do you think that it's still a sustained thing?
So I kind of tend to believe in the bubble argument. I know a lot of people living and working in New York or LA or whatever, they're like, we're not in a bubble, like, because the argument is like, you coastal elites are in a bubble,
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, nah, man, I live in a diverse neighborhood and I fucking do all this other stuff. The thing is, we are living in a bubble. Other people in the rest of the country are also living in bubbles. It's bubbles as far as you go, So
Yeah.
like, I don't think I think what I have, being someone who lives here, is from some place as fucked up as Texas, and as libertarian as Texas, is maybe like a little bit of some bad news for you, which is that like it is less. Like, here, it's very, very like weird. Like it's fringe, but it's pretty embraced just as a way of thinking down there. And I do think part of the reason we have like this strange new right in America is especially like. I'm not so much trying to make a point about the alt-right, but just like a way that people on the right think about like economics in general is this concept of like another way through libertarianism. If you look at you remember the Vice documentary with that fucking neo-Nazi? Did you see that shit?
Yeah. Chris Cantwell.
You mean the failed comedian?
Yeah, if you look up his...
Failed?
Yeah.
Are you saying that because he quit when he was at his peak?
Hey, failed... Question mark? He's still going. I mean, he's still alive. He could come back into the game anytime.
I'm sorry. The hiatus comedian.
Yeah, who knows, man? New faces next year. It'll be a whole different year. I'll roast battle him. Jesus, he just like boop. Yeah, that would be a horrible roast battle. But that guy, if you look up his fucking stand-up, from his stand-up material. By the way, if you guys watched that Vice documentary, anyone listening. That crazy fucking neo-Nazi they followed around is a failed comedian, and you can absolutely watch his shit online. It's on like rooftopcomedy.com and shit, and it's from right before he sort of went full fucking like alt-right neo-nationalist and shit, or white nationalist neo-Nazi and all that shit. He's a fucking straight up libertarian, and like he's he's doing all these jokes about how cool Rand Paul is and stuff, and like personal responsibility, and how like Bernie people are all communists and all this stuff, or like this might even before Bernie. He's just talking about the specter of
I
communists.
think he was talking about drones too. Like,
yeah. Right, and so he was talking about drones, and so
Yeah.
like a lot of those people are really attracted to this position of being like, well, I'm smarter than everyone in this situation because I understand what's wrong with Obama and what's wrong with like Bush and people like that, and what's wrong with this or whatever, and like they back themselves in this weird corner. So I do think that it's probably more of an attractive thing than we think to a lot of people, and it's also a pipeline into some really dark and spooky fucking territories. Like a person like that gets more demented and turns into this crazy, Cantwell thing or whatever. But I do think that like a lot of people that probably voted for Trump considered themselves more libertarians,
right?
That just didn't vote for Gary Johnson because the same way if you were like a fucking person who maybe wanted to vote for Jill Stein but knew there's the system doesn't work that way. Like you can't really vote third party. They probably lumped themselves in and just threw it behind him because he still represented a lot of ideas that fall in line with that whole concept. Like he, in some way, can be seen as an entrepreneur or whatever. He's still like on a base level appeals in a lot of those ways, which is why Trump is like whatever. I'm going to talk about him forever until the end of time in this podcast. But like him and Hillary, it's important with both of these people, I think, to understand that like when we talk about the however many million people that voted for each one of those, it's not like everyone that voted in both sides of this thing were like really into either of these people. Like there might even be a majority of people on both sides of this thing that were like holding holding their nose and just going, well, I'm doing it for this other reason,
and
like,
then you combine them
included.
Right, and then you combine them with the people who didn't vote at all or voted for a third party. Like it's a pretty solid majority of people who did not like either of the candidates and definitely did not like Trump.
Yeah, like the people that actually believe in either of these fucking things are like a fringe group of people,
Right. I mean, it seems like it was interesting to me that they chose Michelle Goldberg as the moderator because she's someone who's very much in the kind of the middle of the two camps because she's like a liberal who supported Hillary Clinton, so she's obviously not on the Bernie Sanders Jacobin side, and then she's not on the Libertarian side either. But it did seem like she was more critical of the Libertarians.
Yeah.
And that's like what I think this goes back to is we're at a moment now where politics is really being realigned in the country. Like I just remember her like writing this article about how exhausted she was from defending Hillary Clinton. Like what in the and the whole time it's just like, well, why are you still doing it? Like this, it's still people are still realizing is like we don't have to think of things in this like limited way. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are taking that in a bad direction. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is funny. I don't know why her life probably led her in that specific situation because I felt that way right up until she lost. And I felt like as soon as Hillary lost, I was like, oh, you get to throw her out with the trash. Like you no longer have to do this.
Yeah.
But there's this weird, like. I hesitate to use the word hangover, but that's what it fucking feels like, Feels like we got way too drunk and it won't go away.
Spend a year.
Yeah. Like
still have a headache.
And I think I'm gonna quit drinking now. Black pill, baby. Let's do it. You heard about that shit? Do you know about the black pill?
About going full like alt-right, right?
No.
Or
so red pill is like a Proud Boy
full
term.
nihilist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Red pill is when you go like Proud Boy, like now I understand like how feminism is bad or whatever. But there's this weird subsect of people that call themselves black pill. They're like, you don't understand. You got to take the black pill and become a complete nihilist.
Yeah.
And just get out of all this shit. And that one is the one that is a little tempting to me.
But we live in a world where the black pill is a thing.
I know.
God damn it.
I know, I hate
it's so
it.
upsetting.
I'm going to take all the pills and then throw up.
You're going to take all the... I'm on the Rainbow Pill Coalition, dog. Give me all the pills.
Drinking rainbow stew. There's this thing, I heard this story about pro wrestlers, like how they're like, because they're, like they're just if you make it successfully into pro wrestling, you're just this like sideshow freak for the rest of your life, but the company takes care of you and shit. But that's your job. It's just fucking do this insane thing, and so they just party and take all these drugs and shit. I heard about this thing called Rainbow Stew, where they would all mix their prescription medicines into a big pot and then just like mix it up with water and drink it and shit.
Was this at the Rainbow Festival?
Yeah. That was how Pride was invented.
Oh.
That's why it's their flag. No.
Before
Shout
that,
out to all of our LGBTQ, BBQ people.
Yeah.
BBQ.
BYOB LGBT.
BYOB, LGBTQ, BBQ people.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about it for the night. Anybody got anything to plug?
you can check out Left Jest. It's my podcast I host with Alex Batak and Raghav Mehta. You can find us on Twitter at The Real Left Jest, iTunes, SoundCloud. And then I have a Twitter handle myself. I meant to change.
What's your Twitter, Anders Lee?
Well, I'm gonna change it right now. I finally thought of a good handle. At Bill Crystal.
Nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Check out the Left Jest. I've been on it twice. I had a great time.
He has, returning champ.
Fun podcast.
Fantastic.
Carlos, you got anything?
Yeah, if you're out in Los Angeles, you can catch me at the Good Night on Wednesday, and I'll be at the Nerdmelt Theater next week. I'll just go to my website for details or follow me on the social medias at Ceviche Poppy across the board. Jake, what do you got?
At Feral Jokes on everything, you know that shit. I am, the night that this comes out, like this podcast will drop tomorrow, which is Tuesday, November 7th. I'm going to be at Mike Gamms' Stand Up Fight Back at TBA in Williamsburg, which is a multiple-part activist panel, benefit, comedy show, and fashion show. I'm fucking stoked about it. It's going to be pretty rad. And also tomorrow / today, when this podcast comes out, is Election Day in New York. For like a bunch of local shit. Vote for Jabari Brisport for city council and vote for Mark Fleedner and on the write-in style for Manhattan DA, so we can stick it to Cy Vance, the horrible fucking Manhattan DA that keeps letting killer cops off, and Harvey Weinstein and the Trump kids and all that shit. He's a dick. Let's flip the motherfucker. I think that's it. That's pod.
That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
Good night, Los. See you, buddy.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for clapping, Mike.